Welcome to Helldivers 2. If you're new and not sure where to start, or just tired of dying to friendly fire, this beginner's guide has you covered. I'll walk you through your ship, missions, and combat so you can actually survive your first drops and start ranking up right away. After the short tutorial, the game hands you control of your super destroyer. Think of this as your personal base of operations. From here, you'll unlock stratagems, upgrade ship modules, manage your weapons and armor, and generally prepare for every mission you take on. Early on, you won't have much unlocked, and that can feel a little underwhelming. But don't worry, this is where you'll return after every mission to grow stronger. Every stratagem, every upgrade, every new weapon eventually ties back to this ship. At the front of the ship, you'll find the Galactic War table. This is where the game really opens up. Every planet on the map is part of a large live community effort. When you pick a mission, you're contributing to the ongoing war. That means the map is always changing, sectors get won, lost, or pushed back depending on how the entire community is doing. What you see today might be gone tomorrow. Before you drop in, it's worth knowing what you're up against. Right now, there are 3 enemy factions, and each one requires a different approach. The Terminids, marked in yellow, are the bug faction. They come in swarms and move fast. They'll generally overwhelm you with numbers, but there are bigger enemies like Bile Titans that can ruin your day if you're not prepared. Shotguns, flamethrowers, and explosives shine here. The automatons are marked in red, are heavily armored killer robots. They fight at range, they have armor, and they punish bad positioning. To fight them, you'll want armor-piercing weapons and a tactical approach. The Illuminate, which are marked in purple, are the newest faction, and a mix of the other two. They do field swarm units like the Voteless, but also bring heavy ranged units like the Overseers and Harvesters. At the top of the map screen, you'll also see 2 types of goals. Major orders are community-wide objectives that advance the war effort and reward a big chunk of medals when completed. These are like weekly events everyone contributes to. Then you have personal orders, which are smaller daily missions for you alone. Things like extracting a certain number of times or getting a set number of kills. They do refresh every 24 hours and are worth doing since medals are how you unlock new gear. Once you choose a mission, you'll notice 3 key details: the mission type, the difficulty, and sometimes modifiers. Missions themselves vary a lot. You might be rescuing civilians, launching nukes, or just holding out against waves of enemies. Some are quick blitz missions that take 10 minutes, others can stretch into 40 minutes with multiple objectives. Helldivers has 10 difficulty levels, from trivial all the way up to super helldive. The main difference as you go up isn't that enemies suddenly become bullet sponges. They don't actually gain health or damage. Instead, you'll just see more enemies, stronger enemy types, and more complex objectives. That's what makes the higher levels harder. You unlock higher difficulties by clearing an entire operation at your current level. Operations are groups of missions chained together. Beat them all, and the next difficulty unlocks. As you climb, modifiers start appearing. Some can help, like giving you free stratagems or radar buffs. Others make things harder. Maybe your airstrikes get scrambled, or visibility is low. Always check modifiers before deploying, because they can completely change how you approach a mission. Once you've picked your mission, it's time to suit up. Before every drop, you'll head into your hell pod and choose your loadout. Here you can bring up to 4 stratagems. At the start, your options are pretty limited: the machine gun support weapon and the orbital precision strike. But don't underestimate them. The machine gun gives you solid crowd control, and the orbital strike is perfect for clearing nests, objectives, or large groups of enemies. You're allowed to carry 1 support weapon at a time and 1 backpack, so you could have something like a shield generator or a supply pack once you unlock them. Some support weapons though, like the recoilless rifle or the autocannon, which you unlock later, actually take up both slots. It's important to know this so that you don't waste a stratagem slot by, say, taking in 2 backpacks into battle. You'll also choose your primary and secondary weapon, grenade type, armor, and a booster. Boosters give your whole squad a passive buff. Things like starting with full ammo or taking a bit less damage. They aren't game-changing early on, but once you unlock more through Warbonds, which are basically the in-game battle passes, they become a big part of optimizing your build. Once you've got your load up selected, you can ready up. Once everyone is ready, you'll dive in and start the mission. The first things you should do when you hit the ground is pull up your map. This is one of the most valuable tools in Helldivers 2. It shows your objectives, side missions, points of interest, and even nearby enemies. Planning your route early keeps you from wandering into a bad fight unprepared. Next, you should call in your support weapon stratagems like the machine gun. You'll want it ready before you run into enemies, plus it immediately starts the cooldown timer so it's available again sooner. Calling in stratagems isn't just a quick menu click. You have to punch in a sequence of inputs. On PC, you'll hit Control and input WASD or use the arrow keys in the correct order. And on controller, it's the D-pad. If you mess up, you start over, and all of this happens while enemies are closing in. From here, head towards your main objective, but don't ignore the extras along the way. Side objectives like setting up artillery, activating radar towers, or destroying bug nests reward bonus XP, requisition slips, and sometimes even medals. Points of interest, marked as question marks on your map, often hide supply caches, bunkers, or even super credit stashes. Even if you can't clear everything in one run, grabbing samples or medals as you move through the map adds up over time and pays off in the long run. Combat in this game can be chaotic, and even small patrols can wipe you out if you're not careful. The most important lesson is that you don't have to fight everything. Patrols can often be avoided by crouching or going prone, since that makes you harder to spot. But if you do engage, make sure you take them out quickly. The longer a fight drags on, the more likely they'll call for reinforcements, which can turn a small scrimmage into a disaster. When shooting, stick to short, controlled bursts. Accuracy improves a lot if you're crouched, or even more if you go prone. Reloading is something to manage carefully too. Hitting reload dumps the entire mag, even if there are rounds left. Don't constantly top off, or you'll burn through your ammo faster than you think. Movement is just as important as shooting. Diving is an absolute lifesaver. It lets you dodge lunges and break lines of sight. If you're pinned, a quick dive often buys the breathing room you need. It also drastically reduces incoming damage, so get used to diving often. And finally, don't forget your stratagems. They're not just for objectives. Drop a turret to cover a flank, call in an airstrike to clear a choke point, or bring in heavy weapons when big enemies spawn. Just remember, friendly fire is always on. Your own airstrike can wipe out your squad, and even sentries will be happy to mow you down if you wander into their line of fire. Let's be honest, death is part of Helldivers. You're going to die. The good news is that you can respawn as long as you and your team have reinforcements remaining. If a teammate goes down, you'll need to call them back in with a reinforcement stratagem, just like any other. Just make sure you don't leave them waiting on the sideline when they could be back in the fight. You can also see how many reinforcements are left. Keep an eye on this, because if you run out before completing the final objective, the mission fails. Supply drops are another shared system you need to manage carefully. When you call down an ammo or stim crate, it goes on a team-wide cooldown. That means if you use it just to refill a couple grenades, your whole squad might be stuck waiting when a real fight happens. Best practice is to time them in between fights, objectives, or even before you extract. Once you've finished your main objective, it's time to call for extraction. You'll find the terminal on your map. Interact with it and start the countdown. From that point, you have about 2 minutes to hold out until the shuttle arrives. This is sometimes the most intense part of the mission. Waves of enemies will throw themselves at you, and this is where you want to unload every stratagem you've got left. Call down turrets, orbital strikes, and supply drops if you have them. Positioning makes or breaks extractions. If you can, hold the high ground or a narrow choke point. Don't try to cover every angle, instead force the enemies to funnel into you. When the shuttle finally arrives, remember that it will fire at enemies in the landing zone, and those shots can damage you and your squad. Once the doors open, you'll need to run into it to trigger the final countdown for takeoff. Just make sure your whole team is nearby. If someone's lagging behind, they can easily get left stranded as the shuttle departs. After extracting, you'll head back into your Super Destroyer, and this is where the long-term progression really happens. Missions are how you gather resources, but the ship is where you turn those into upgrades and new gear. The first terminal you'll spend a lot of time at is Stratagem Management. This is where you unlock new stratagems, everything from orbital strikes and turrets to heavy weapons and even vehicles. Early on, you only have a couple basics, like the support machine gun and orbital precision strike. Once you hit the right level, unlocking each stratagem costs requisition slips, which you earn steadily from missions and objectives. By the time you reach level 20, you'll have access to the full roster. Next to that is ship modules, which gives you permanent passive upgrades that makes your stratagem stronger. Think faster cooldowns, more charges, or bigger explosions. These require samples to unlock, and samples come in 3 tiers. Common, which are green, rare, which are orange, and super, which are purple. The harder the mission, the better the samples. Trivial only drops common, medium adds rare, and super samples only appear on extreme or higher. Unlike the other currencies, you'll have to make sure you safely extract at the end of each mission if you want to keep your samples. Then there's the Armory, where you manage your weapons, grenades, and armor. Weapons level up as you use them, unlocking attachments like extended mags, optics, and even camos. These attachments can drastically change how a weapon feels, and like stratagems, they're unlocked with requisition slips. Armor is another huge choice that affects how you play. Light armor makes you feel faster and recover stamina quicker, but also makes you take more damage. Heavy armor slows you down, but you can tank more hits. Medium armor sits in the middle as a balanced option. There's no best choice, it depends on your mission and playstyle. Heavy armor works great for defensive objectives where movement doesn't matter as much, while light armor is a lifesaver on blitz missions where speed is more important. When in doubt, medium is a great choice for most missions. You'll also find the boosters that we mentioned earlier here, which act as squad-wide perks. Things like starting with extra ammo or regenerating stims faster. You don't get them right away since they're unlocked through Warbonds, but once available, they can make a big difference and give your whole team an edge. The Warbond system is basically Helldivers' version of a battle pass. You earn medals through missions, major orders, personal orders, and points of interest, and then spend them to unlock weapons, armor, boosters, and cosmetics. Each Warbond page requires you to spend a certain number of medals before you can move on to the next. Some Warbonds are free, while premium ones require super credits, which is Helldivers' premium currency. Super credits can actually be found in missions, usually in bunkers, pods, or smaller stacks scattered around, but they can also be bought with real money. You'll mainly use them for premium Warbonds or for buying items in the Superstore. Early on, my advice is to prioritize practical unlocks first. Grab weapons, gear, and boosters that make your missions easier, and leave cosmetics like helmets and capes for later. Then there's the Superstore, which rotates items you can buy with super credits. Most of the time, the best gear is in the Warbonds anyways, but if there's a cosmetic you really like, this is where you'll find it. But unless you're flush with super credits, I wouldn't worry about spending here too much. It's more of a bonus shop than a core progression system. Leveling up in Helldivers 2 is one of the most important parts of your early progress, since many of the best weapons and stratagems are locked behind the first 20 levels. Blitz missions are a great way to speed this up because they give almost the same experience as a longer operation, but take only a fraction of the time. Higher difficulty missions also provide XP multipliers, but I don't recommend pushing too quickly into tougher missions. The game intentionally locks some of the more powerful weapons which you'll need for those higher difficulties behind those early levels. Some strong stratagems to focus on in the first couple of levels include the EAT-17, a disposable launcher with 2 rockets and a quick cooldown that's perfect for dealing with armored enemies. The supply pack, which keeps you and your squad topped up with ammo, stims, and grenades throughout a mission. The recoilless rifle, which is an S-tier anti-tank weapon that every squad should consider bringing. The grenade launcher, which shines against bug swarms and pairs extremely well with the supply pack. And the Eagle Airstrike, a reliable offensive option which you can use early on to get quick, precise firepower against clusters of enemies. Later unlocks like the autocannon and the 500 kg bomb, which is one of the strongest Eagle strikes in the game, round out your arsenal and make higher level missions far more manageable. By the time you reach level 20, you'll have access to essentially all the core gear, giving you flexibility to build loadouts for any situation. So that's everything you need to know to get started in Helldivers 2. If you found this guide helpful, hit like and let me know in the comments below if there's any other tips you have. And feel free to subscribe for more Helldivers 2. Until next time, thanks for watching.